Yes, I have that magical power that all the music disappears when I come on the stage. It's crazy. And this is our last session of day 2. Glad you came. Take a seat, reflect on the day, and then take in some very valuable information that LumaStream is about to present. Lighting has been a key theme on the show floor for its contributions to wellness, and it's certainly an area of business growth for integrators. Moderated by Jason Knott, Chief Content Officer of CE Pro, this panel is ready to tackle the topic of powering the future and how integrators can play a role in the evolving lighting world. Welcome to the stage to do your introductions and your panel discussion. Let's hear it. Come on, guys.
Everybody still awake? Thank you, Leanne. Appreciate that. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for everybody out there in Facebook land who is watching us live right now. I think you're in for some really informative information, if that's not repetitive. Preparing for this session kind of reminded me of the old Bob Dylan song, "The Times They Are A-Changin'," and if that song and that lyric doesn't apply to anything more than what we're going to talk about right now, then nothing does. The session is called Powering the Future, and there's a massive change that's taking place right now in terms of power generation and the distribution of power, and a lot of it's being driven by what's happening in I'll call it the Save the Planet movement, the environmental movement, but it's a very important movement, and it's having a lot of influence and being driven by technology. Talking about renewable power generation, DC battery storage, efficient distribution, and smart controls. All of these things are becoming essential ingredients to fulfilling this future of helping protect the planet and preserve the planet's natural resources. And a critical element of that is this transition that's taking place from AC power to DC power. And again, the times are changing. Most notably, low voltage DC power distribution is bringing some profound advantages to the LED lighting solutions market. And this is right in the wheelhouse of the custom integration market. And you guys are on the cusp of this technology and really being able to be thought leaders and valued partners who bring these solutions to your customers. So I'm very excited today to be joined by a couple of very esteemed panelists who are going to talk about that. And hopefully we want to leave a little bit of time at the end for questions from the audience too. So first off with me, Eric Higgs. Welcome, Eric. Eric is founder and chairman of the board at LumaStream. Eric, tell us quickly about LumaStream.
About 10 years ago, we decided we'd create a practical and logical system for powering a low voltage DC product, most notably lighting. So we've been able to amass about 23 patents on methods of distributing power over a low voltage topology, namely 18.2 wire, speaker wire, and solving a lot of the problems that we see with the LED world and opening up a massive revenue opportunity for low voltage integrators.
Fantastic, welcome.
Thank you.
Also, immediately to my left is Luis Rodriuez. Luis is president of WOW Media just in nearby Massachusetts. I'm in Framingham, Mass, so he's not too far down the road from me. Luis, tell us a little bit about WOW Media.
So we've been in business for about 8 years, and we have a location in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, working with LumaStream for a little over 2 years, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
All right, let's jump right into it. Eric, what are we talking about when we use the term DC power, and what is it and how does it work?
Well, there's an awful lot to cover. There could be a whole course about it, of course. But what today we're going to focus on is the trends toward DC power. Why are they moving so quickly? What that means, and what opportunities it opens up for you all in a world where it's evident that we need to move to an alternative energy source and get away from fossil fuels for the welfare of the planet and mankind in general. DC power is the answer. And that's opening up a lot of opportunities for different industries, but especially low voltage integrators. So, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, that's the cover slide. So let's put all this in a broader context of smart cities. Obviously, this industry is all about intelligence and control. So what is a smart city? It's an intelligent city connected by a network of sensors that gathers data that can be analyzed, and then an action or a process can be initiated. With that, it applies to industrial, transportation, and personal, our life as a personal person in a city, to basically make things more convenient, reduce friction points, and make our lives in general, hopefully, more enjoyable. So a smart city isn't just about the data associated with those types of analytics, but it's about a renewable power solution. And that power solution comes from wind, solar, and hydro. And it's important that we understand where this trend's going as technologies evolves and what opportunities that those present.
Aren't we seeing some smart cities being developed? I think I've seen some experimental smart cities from Samsung and some other people out there already.
There's some pilots of some small cities being built that are completely from ground up intelligent cities, but it's going to be a transition in all cities, little by little, over a period of 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. We're going to see all smart cities because it makes sense.
And is that being driven by the utility, really, and this lack of power, or this pressure that's being put on the grid? Is that who the real driving force, or is it just technology in general that's driving that trend?
Technology in general, but if you we'll go to the next slide. If we look at DC power in general, and I talk about it in the evolution of power, I answer your question. 130 years ago, we had the battle of the currents, right? We had Tesla with AC, we had Edison with DC power. AC power won out. So why is that? It won out because of the safety factors, the efficiency, the cost, but also, let's face it, politics. 130 years later, things have changed. Technology has advanced. So with advancement of technology, DC power has become much more viable, and with in-demand being created by renewable power, it's making a lot of sense and it's logical. But is DC power better than AC power? Well, we are sending power from solar and wind farms and hydroelectric plants, and it's more efficient to send it long distances with DC power. The wiring is less expensive and lighter. The gear of a DC overall power grid is simplified. That means less equipment, less things that can fail, less brownouts. So it's completely logical that we're going toward a DC power world. MIT recently announced that they believe in 20 years half the power demand will come from DC power. So this isn't going away. This isn't a trend. This isn't a fad. Another thing that's very, very important is that our national grid is highly susceptible to cyber attacks. It's probably inevitable that at some point a cyber attack will take out an entire city, the entire East Coast, the entire West Coast. When we move into microgrids, where you have a solar field for a neighborhood or a town, it's really not that attractive for whoever's trying to attack us to take out a small town or a neighborhood. And it's much easier to create that an isolated, secured power network grid with a solar grid, with a microgrid, sorry. The other thing to make this power efficient is the digital aspect of it. Digital power conversion is very efficient, and to enable it to be controlled in the way that we're moving in toward a digital world, it makes sense that the entire value chain is in a digital format. Of course, that's important for smart grid technology as well.
And you can see from your slide, you can see that ecosystem all really does flow together. The control and the electronics portion of it That's where the integrator, this is where this really fits into the integrator's world, right?
That's right. In this particular example, you know, it could be hydro or wind, but in this particular example, we have solar. We've got battery storage, such as Sonnen over there, that have intelligent battery systems for managing the power under certain conditions, community-based battery sourcing. And what this shows is that renewable power is collected in a DC format, stored in a DC format. But the world, because we live in an AC power world, it's inverted. Okay, there's power losses every time you invert or transform power. What makes sense is to skip that step and go straight into a DC system with efficient DC transmission, powering all the electronics that run on low voltage DC. So that's what we really focus on at LumaStream, is the efficient manner of getting power in the most direct way with the least amount of power inversions and transformers. I'd like to say one more thing is the way that the integration world can help push this market into a sustainable energy source is creating demand on the device side, on the load side, and the digital aspect of all the controls that this world, our world, works in. When there's demand going back up the value chain of DC power, then that's a big driver, obviously, for innovations in storage and power generation. So it's important that we push this quickly.
All right, do you want to jump into the practical steps next, or do you have some?
I have two more.
Okay, go ahead.
So for integrators to get into the low voltage DC world, which opens up opportunities such as lighting solutions that don't require a line voltage electrician. You can do it just like you do your AV equipment. This is very much like a stereo amplifier with speakers. It's an intelligent power supply with lights. And since we're stuck in an AC world with AC coming into our buildings, then the most logical way to power all these individual loads, these individual devices, is to transform the power centrally, one time for many devices. Now, why is that beneficial? In the LED lighting world, the problems are premature failure, flicker, the degradation of light quality over time. It's all caused by heat, by these electronics. And the electronics basically cook themselves, and that's why you're seeing failures. These fixtures, the way the industry's doing it, these fixtures are not lasting but a fraction of the time that they claim. The other benefit of this is that these are a multi-channel distribution run on 18-2 shielded wire, which is basically speaker wire. So that's all the stuff that's on the back of the integrated trucks already. We've eliminated the fire risk in a building because it's all low voltage. The gear savings is tremendous. There's no heavy copper. The installation is far easier. And as an integrator, your control, I think you came up with this term, own the ceiling, right? Where you control the speakers, you control the lighting and the layout of it, and you're not fighting with another trade. So the benefits of this whole system is very robust. It's simple to install, and you won't have failing fixtures, especially in a high ceiling application in a house of worship or a high ceiling in a foyer of a home. That's a real problem. Luis is going to talk about that. So distributed low voltage architecture is one way. The other way is power over Ethernet. Now you've seen some of these PoE systems out here. PoE is came out of the networking world. In this world, it operates on switches and gateways. Of course, there's drivers. The drivers are taken out of the fixture, so that's not an issue with failure. However, you're working a network solution, you're using data wire for power and data. To have two-way communications, you've got additional electrical components that go back in the fixture for managing the data and the power. So it is a more complex system, it's a more expensive system, but it can make sense in large installations where it's a data-intensive application, and it can justify the infrastructure cost and the network administration cost associated with it. Scaling it down it's hard to scale that down and do it in a way that's cost effective and not labor intensive, but it does have some benefits there.
Good. Good, kind of a good lay of the landscape there, I think, on what's going on in this technology change. All right, let's hear where the rubber meets the road. So, talk about your experience with DC power. When did you start getting involved with it? Start working with LumaStream, and why?
Sure, thanks, Jason. So about 2.5 years ago, we were opening our first showroom, and about 1 o'clock in the morning, my business partner and I are sitting there, and I'm like, we're sick of getting calls, 2 weeks before the walls go up, oh, hey, I need speakers. This all happens to all integrators, right? I want to be in there in the beginning. So what can we do? So then I get a call from my rep. He's like, hey, can we get over to your place? And I said, yeah, perfect. Come over at 9 o'clock tonight or whatever. It was late. So LumaStream came over and they said, hey, let me show you what we can do. They gave us a presentation. I went home and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, God, this is great. Let's try it out. We flew down to Florida, their facility. They did an amazing training, showed us exactly how the system works, and showed us how to implement it. We came back. Within 2 weeks, we had our first project. And all that started was with the customer saying, I can't find these bulbs for these MR16 lights that cost $150 each. I'm like, okay, let me find some. So I went and I found one for him. We plugged it in, and he's like, well, how come that one's brighter than that one? Well, that one's been there for 5 years, and this one's brand new, so now let's change all of them. So he's like, well, that's going to cost me $2,000, $3,000 just in bulbs. I said, well, I have a solution for you. And we showed him the lights, and he's like, okay, great, let's do the kitchen. We ended up doing the kitchen, then it went out to do the whole entire home. But what really, really triggered it was, he's like, I need a generator. And they had a 200 amp service. So I said, we did the load calculations. Because of LumaStream, we were able to save them 40 amps on their system. He was able to save $30,000 for the generator he wanted. And we got the whole entire lighting project. And he's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I don't have to change any bulbs. And that's how I really got into it.
So let's kind of pick up on that. That sounds like a fascinating case study. Is that the starting point with all the customers? You start talking about the bulbs and the loads, and that kind of leads you into, let me tell you a solution to this.
Yeah, so a lot of integrators have the difficulty of describing LED lights. When we say the word LED, the customer still doesn't know what that means. So we come in and say, hey, who's doing your lighting? That's the first question. They're going to say, I don't know, the electrician, the architect, maybe a lighting designer. So then I say, hey, what happens if we do the lighting correctly? So let's say the electrician, hey, how many lights do we need in this room? We need 8. Well, why do we need 8? I don't know, because I put 8 lights here before in the same house next door. So then what I do is I work with LumaStream, and we actually do a color rendering, and we find out exact how many lights we need in that room. But the whole entire time, I'm not talking about 18.2. I'm not talking about DC power, because you don't want to confuse them. I'm giving them a solution of how this is done. How to light the room, exactly. And then they're like, is this new? I'm like, it's the new norm. This is where we're going. I'm like, let me give you an example. You're going to have an electrician run, Romex wire to the light switch. From light switch to the light, then down to the panel. Then you're going to run to Home Depot, buy a LED bulb for $10, and you plug it in and only use 5 watts. So you're actually only powering that light with a fire hose when it needs a garden hose. So all that infrastructure, and I just showed you how to save money. And then that's when we start working with the electricians and showing them, hey, I'm not taking work away from you. I want you to wire my job. And then we build relationships that way.
Is this mainly in a new home construction or addition type scenario, or are you finding this in a retrofit situation too?
Great question. So we've done both. Most integrators, what we're really, really good at is running wires and walls without cutting holes. That's where we flourish, right? Electricians, they're not, they're good, but they're not as good as our market, I think. So when we do retrofit, if I can get a speaker wire there, if I can run an HDMI cable on the wall, or if the Samsung One Connect cable that's this thick, then I can do a retrofit. And it's very easy to cut out an old system because you really don't have to pull out all the wire. You just take that switch, pull it out, and you cut the feed, well, the electrician, and then you put in either, another Control 4 or a Vantage switch. Now, one thing I want to talk about, since we did low voltage lighting, I said, well, why can't we do low voltage switches? So I want to own the wall. So now we wire all the lights. I do all the switches, and I don't need any electricians. But it's not about cutting them out of the picture. It's about educating them. So now we'll get calls from electricians. Hey, can you spec this house out for me? I'll do all the wiring because they want the labor, right? And you guys come in and pop everything in? Of course. We'll do that all day long.
So let's kind of like just look at a typical scenario, typical home, whatever, 2,500 square foot or 3,000 square foot home or whatever it might be that you might be doing this in. In terms of making money in this category,
Yep.
give us a sense of is it a profit? So many guys out here are used to these high markup on the equipment scenario. Is it labor built? Where does it fall? What's the money scenario?
Great. So first of all, I'm already in the job before my other competitors because I'm doing the lighting. So I'm already in. So they're not going to look at other vendors for speakers and TVs and such. So I'm ready. That's number one. Number two, what I'll do is when I do the design, we make the margin on the product, of course. On the labor portion, we charge a percentage of the project. Make it simple. And we find, to give you an example, a $10,000, retail price installed, let's say small project, we're probably making $400 to $4,500, and we're there for a day. But we're also running speaker wire. So if I'm in the ceiling and I'm running speaker wire and I'm running lighting, you're still able to charge for each section, but you just tackle it at the same time.
So it sounds like the biggest revenue opportunity really is a revenue expansion opportunity. It's money you would not have gotten. That would have gone to the electrician, not to you.
Correct. In our company, we call it unearned revenue. Revenue we've never expected. So when I have my sales team come out, I'm like, if a customer calls us, that's earned revenue. If it's a referral, that's earned revenue. An unearned revenue is, hey, I was in the house installing a TV on the wall and doing 2 speakers. Oh, and by the way, now we're doing lighting. That's unearned revenue because we didn't initially go in there for that.
One dynamic that we're seeing and integrators are telling us about, Luis is a perfect example, is that integrators are saying, hey, I'm getting lighting jobs, and then I got the AV work to go with it. So the entree was the lighting, and then all the AV work came with it. You want to talk about Longplex?
Yeah, so
What kind of project that was?
we did a 64,000 square foot sports facilities with 208 high bays. So that was a great job. I called the owner, and he ignored my phone calls. He finally called me back and said, hey, you blew up my phone so many times. What do you want? I said, we need to talk because I think we can do business together. He goes, come by my office. I was not prepared. I printed up some paperwork, flew down there. And then I didn't want to miss the opportunity. So I said to him, what are you doing this Friday? It was like a Wednesday. He's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, let's fly to Florida. He goes, I said, listen, you work hard, you need a day off. I'll pay for everything. What's a plane ticket? Let's fly to Florida for one day. I didn't even ask permission from the staff yet. And he's like, okay, great. Hung up the phone. I then called Eric, called Tom, and I said, hey, we're going down there. I got a guy. We need to show him. So we did a tour of all the commercial projects. We did it, and he was amazing and said, okay, great. Let's do this. Then we did the installation. The electrical inspector came out and said, I'm not going to say the exact words he said, but he was not a happy person because he thought that we were joking by powering his lights 35 feet in the air with low voltage. So he's like, I need 8 lights to put up because I want to see it before I approve it. We put it in. He said, beep, beep, beep. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's working, right? Okay, continue. Now, the beauty about it was because it's so high, the ceilings are high in a commercial environment, if the problem will never be in the fixture, ever. It'll always be in the closet down below. He has an ice skating rink. So imagine if it was a high voltage fixture with MC power and such. They would have to get a forklift, all this stuff just to change a bulb. One thing I do want to add to that, of course, what happened, my proposal got out to someone, and it went to a distributor, and they ended up calling LumaStream saying, hey, I want to rep your product. I want to sell it. Because we came in $148,000 less than everybody else. So, and the electrician who wired it kept his labor the same. We kept everything the same. Everybody made, the customer was happy. And it was all transparency, the whole entire project.
That's a great success story. Congratulations on that. So, Eric, let me throw it back to you. What are some practical steps that integrators can take to right now, first steps, get engaged in DC-powered systems?
Sure. I think the biggest obstacle that we found, that we finally figured a solution to, was that most AV integrators have not done lighting before. Obviously, some have done theatrical lighting. It's a little different, scaling down to a home. So we had to deal with the enthusiasm gap of generating lots of excitement over this at our booth at CEDIA and elsewhere, and taking that when the integrators go home and go, I don't know how to do this. Oh, why don't you fly to Florida, we'll train you. Well, the better method is to work with the rep companies and our folks and go out and meet with the integrators in their environment. But also, the biggest obstacle is I'm not a lighting designer. I don't know how to map all this out. I don't really understand LumaStream's system yet. So what we do is we offer service. You send us your plans. That's not hard to do. Figure out how to sell LumaStream, a few benefits, right? Not that hard. And then say, hey, let me try to bid on this lighting. So you send us the plans, we do the lighting design, we do the specification, we create a quote package, okay? That quote package goes back to the integrator. If they win the project, they pay us the design fee that's on there, 4 or 6%, something in that range. If they don't win it, you don't pay a dime. So we've eliminated the risk and a lot of the fear of jumping into the lighting business and having to answer a lot of questions they don't know how to address. So that's really how we're proceeding. We're trying to make it as easy as possible. We have webinars and things of that nature, and some videos, installation videos, and trying to leverage the education in a more practical manner.
Sounds like a no-risk first step there, really. Yeah.
No risk.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to add to that is the presentation. So we look like a hero because of them. We send the plan over, and we send it over to them. We get the rendering back. It's a beautiful package, right? Now, this is where dealers need help, and this is how we do it. So we say here at Wow Media and LumaStream, we just don't put a light in the ceiling. We think about where the light's going to go. So what I'm about to show you is your home in a 3D rendering, and we're going to walk room by room before I even show numbers. Hey, this is the living room. These are the lights. This is your couch. Yep. Oh, Luis, you know what? I sit right here all the time and read a book. Can we have a little bit more light there? Yes, because that's right here. We can add more light. Write that note down. Okay, and we're going through the whole process, and we say, do you want round? Do you want square? Do you want trimless? And as we're doing that, the customer's already buying in, right? And we're looking like professionals because there's no electricians that do this. Lighting designers don't even go that far. But that's because with their design. Now, their design at the highest percentage, it's still less expensive than any other lighting designer. We double that.
So we're getting close on time, but I think I've got an important question I do want to ask. You mentioned electricians. You obviously work with electricians throughout the year, referral base, et cetera, engage with them. Has there been pushback? How have you had to deal with this? Have electricians say, we're never working with Wow Media again because they're doing this now, this low voltage lighting? How have you worked that relationship and handled it?
Yeah, so I think I don't want to say we perfected it. I think we got it down pretty good. We look for the electrician that's younger. They're hungry. They want to be the boss. They want to be the PM. So we look to them, and they're interested in this. And we show them, hey, by the way, I got this project. I want you to wire it for me. I want you to tell me your thoughts. And the feedback that we get is, oh my gosh, this was so easy. Great, now I want to talk to your boss. Can you relay that information? The electricians that we find that pushback are the ones that have been doing it for 40, 50, 60 years. hey, don't bother me. I've been doing this since dinosaurs and all this jazz. Great. Let me talk to somebody who works for you, because those are the people doing the legwork. Just as my employees doing work, and if they're doing something, they say, hey, Luis, we should be doing this, I'm going to listen. So that's how we work with them.
All right, we are up against the time, but I have one other question for Eric that I think is an important one also, is talk about, you touched on it a little bit, but talk about how PoE differs from a low voltage distribution system.
Yeah, again, PoE is based on a network solution, right? It is a very different topology, and it is built on a number of components that are necessary for a network solution, typically run and maintained by a network administrator. So again, you're sending data and power over category wire. Some of those wires are being used for power, some of them are being used for data. So that's the primary difference in two-way communication in that regard. Again, data-intensive large applications, it's a system that can make some sense, but it falls under the networking aspect of a building. It's an IT solution.
All right, do we have any questions from the audience for these gentlemen? They've answered all your questions. I think this was very insightful. This is, again, a category that a year from now, 2 years from now, certainly 5 years from now, most likely integrators are going to all be engaged in. So if I can get a round of applause for Eric Higgs, Luis Rodriuez, and Eric, where is LumaStream's booth?
1927. Just walk straight that way. We're in the middle, and there's a big red column at the moment lit up. So come see us. I think you'll find it be interesting. Thank you.